Kandi Burruss and her family dynamics. Let me tell you, it's not as glamorous as it seems on reality TV. Just a few weeks ago, Bravo revealed a new reality show featuring none other than Kandi Burruss and her family, and it was planned to air on June 3rd. It was a major deal, and everyone was talking about it. But what no one expected was the maelstrom of drama that would follow, initiating a cascade of events that would have spectators reconsidering everything they thought they knew about Kandi and her life. Kandi Burruss has always been renowned for her accomplishments, Grammy-winning songs, her role as one of the biggest stars of Real Housewives of Atlanta, and a booming corporate empire. She's the kind of woman somebody goes into a room and suddenly commands attention. But beneath all the glitter and splendor, her family dynamic has always been more sophisticated than what we saw on TV. Enter Kandi Burruss, Kandi's daughter. Riley's been in the spotlight for most of her life, yet now she's walking out of her mother's shadow to express her truth. Riley recently opened out in a social media post that left everyone flabbergasted. She wasn't simply talking about the fame or the luxury. She was talking about how she was treated growing up, like a product, a brand, anything that belonged to the TV show, not a person. As she described it, her life had always been on display for the world to see, but no one fully knew what was occurring behind closed doors. This isn't your typical mother-daughter connection. For years, fans have watched Kandi and Riley appear to have this wonderful bond. But Riley's statements were a sharp contrast to that image. She stated that her family wasn't simply acting out a scenario for the cameras. They were living a drama, one that involved not only her mother, but her grandma and stepfather too. The disputes, the unspoken strain, it all came to a head in a way that was too real to ignore. In the past, Riley had been portrayed as only a child in the background of Kandi's ascent to prominence. But now, she was stepping forward, ready to disclose what had been buried for so long. And the truth she revealed wasn't simply about her personal experiences. It painted a much deeper picture of how her mother, Kandi, has been influenced by all the fame and fortune. Riley explained how her family's interactions were strained, especially when it came to Kandi's marriage to Todd Tucker. For years, Mama Joyce, Kandi's mother, had been public about her doubts regarding Todd. She didn't trust him, often making nasty comments regarding his finances and scrutinizing his genuine intentions. As a mother, Mama Joyce simply wanted the finest for Kandi. But her words and actions made it apparent that she didn't think Todd was the appropriate man for her daughter. The tension between the two ladies, Mama Joyce and Kandi, had always been present on Real Housewives of Atlanta. But what Riley revealed was that it was significantly worse than anyone knew. This family wasn't only dealing with trivial debates over dinner. They were confronting deep-rooted challenges that threatened to tear them apart. Riley felt stuck in the middle of it all, always navigating the tangled interactions between her mother and her grandmother, both strong women having strong opinions. The stress of it things weighed heavy on her, and the more she spoke, the more the fractures in the family's facade began to show. But here's when it gets interesting. Riley revealed something that startled everyone. She explained how shortly before Kandi's wedding to Todd, Mama Joyce issued an ultimatum. Mama Joyce wasn't just upset about the marriage. She made it apparent that if Kandi followed through with it, there would be terrible penalties. She would remove her support from Kandi's business and refuse to help with her financial prosperity. This was not merely a mother's disapproval. It was the alert, a power play that left Riley reeling. As the tension between Mama Joyce and Todd grew, Riley found herself in a tight situation, unclear of where her loyalties lay. On one hand, there was her mother, the lady who had given her everything. On the other, there was her grandmother, who had been a steady figure in her life, even if their relationship wasn't without its complications. Riley, caught between these two formidable women, was obliged to confront the terrible truth about her family's struggle for dominance. But the strangest part, Riley wasn't the only one who was feeling the heat. Kandi's life wasn't as perfect as it seemed on TV. Behind the grins and the flashy cars, there was a whole other story that was far from the one spectators witnessed. Kandi was dealing with her own set of issues, including the consequences from her marriage to Todd, which just added gasoline to the fire. What makes this story unusual is that it's not only about celebrity or money, it's about family, trust, and what comes when all you've worked for starts to crumble under the weight of personal conflicts. It's not the fairy tale marriage that Kandi represented on screen. And it's not the family dynamic that fans thought they knew. It's real, raw, and incredibly complicated. The craziest part? The tension was never just about Kandi's marriage to Todd Tucker or the average familial disputes we see on reality TV. It went deeper. What Riley uncovered wasn't only a few nasty comments or disagreements. It was a silent conflict that had been brewing for years, and it was now coming to the surface in a way that no one could ignore. As Riley revealed, it wasn't simply Mama Joyce who had an issue with Todd. The entire family dynamic had been influenced by the continually widening rift. What appeared to be a gorgeous family filled with love, luxury, and success was actually a battleground with each member vying for control in different ways. The conflict between Mama Joyce and Todd Tucker wasn't anything that was simply caught in passing on Real Housewives of Atlanta. It was personal. Riley revealed how behind the cameras, Mama Joyce had been stating her views of Todd clear for years, ever since he and Kandi first started dating. It wasn't just about not liking him. It was about questioning his intentions, his financial stability, and whether he was nice enough for Kandi. Mama Joyce never missed an opportunity to voice her doubts, making Todd feel as if he would never be accepted by the family. It wasn't just words either. Riley described how the tension escalated in the years leading up to Kandi and Todd's wedding. She explained that the family was on edge, and what everyone thought was a pleasant moment turned into a high-stakes game of who was in power. Riley recalled hearing Mama Joyce issue an ultimatum before the wedding. It was chilling. Mama Joyce made it obvious that if Kandi married Todd, she would remove her support from everything Kandi had built, including her business. This wasn't simply about a wedding or personal opinions. It was about money, power, and the control Mama Joyce had over her daughter's achievement. Riley was left to watch the repercussions and try to make sense of it all. And this is where things took an unexpected turn. Riley's feelings towards Todd had always been mixed. She didn't entirely dislike him, but she couldn't ignore the things she had heard and witnessed throughout the years. There was a sense that Todd wasn't just Kandi's husband. He was a player in the broader game of family politics. Riley's issues didn't stop with Todd's marriage to her mother. She questioned if Todd was in it for love or for the fame and money that comes with being married, becoming one of the most renowned women in the entertainment industry. This was the section of the story where things got even more complicated. Riley didn't just feel torn between her mother and Granny. She was likewise having to come to terms with the fact that her stepfather might not be as real as she had hoped. The impression that Todd was using chocolates to further his own career didn't sit well with Riley. And she wasn't the only one who had doubts. Mama Joyce from the start beginning had made it known that she think Todd was opportunistic and lacked the fundamental qualities to be a good husband to Kandi. It was a steady back and forth with Riley trapped in the midway attempting to make sense of the shattered family she was part of. But here's when it gets interesting. Riley wasn't the only one who noticed the problems in Todd. Kandi herself, despite her deep love for him, had began to notice the fractures in their relationship too. She had always been the successful one, the breadwinner, the businesswoman. And while Todd backed her, there was an underlying issue that neither of them could ignore. Kandi's success was something Todd had to live up to. His own career had been put on the back burner. And while Kandi continued to develop her empire, Todd was left struggling with his own participation in their marriage. He had given up his career in television production to support Kandi, but it left him feeling dissatisfied, distant, and resentful. The tension between them grew as Kandi's business enterprises continued to take off. Kandi and Todd were both incredibly successful, but they were also struggling to juggle work and family life. This wasn't something they could hide behind a mask of smiles for the cameras. The strain began to show in their personal life, and it became clear that the gloss and splendor that around them couldn't cover up the major fissures in their connection. What makes this story different is that the conflict was never only about money or business. It was about who was in control, who was sacrificing what, and what each person sought from the relationship. Kandi's success had become a source of friction, not only with her mother but also with her husband. For Todd, it wasn't just about becoming Kandi's partner. It was about finding his position in a world that was constantly centered surrounding Kandi. Riley's disclosure made it evident that in many respects, Todd had sacrificed more than he was willing to admit, and that led to a rising frustration that Riley had to watch. As Riley spoke out, her remarks gave light about a side of her family that the world had never seen before. She wasn't just talking about family drama. She was exposing the emotional and psychological toll that celebrity and prosperity had on them. For Riley, it was never just about Todd being a terrible man. It was about the intricate layers of love, loyalty, and power that played out behind the scenes. Her revelation forced Kandi, Mama Joyce, forcing Todd to confront the reality about their strained interactions. And this is when it gets pretty complicated. None of them appeared ready to face it. Mama Joyce was determined to cling on to her position of control in Kandi's life. Todd was attempting to find his position, and Kandi, caught in the middle, had to find a way to keep everything together while dealing with the continual pull between her family and her work. What makes this whole situation distinct is that this isn't just about reality TV. It's about real people, real feelings, and the unspoken consequences of fame and success. Riley's story is a wake-up call, a reminder that even the most beautiful lifestyles have gloomy parts that are rarely seen. And as this family drama unfolds, it becomes evident that there is more at risk than just a marriage or a business. It's about their whole family's future, and whether they can transcend the forces that threaten to break them apart. But here's where it becomes fascinating. Riley wasn't the only one harmed by the growing tensions in her family. The real cost of Kandi's fame and success wasn't simply about the problems with her spouse or her mother. It was about the fractures inside the household that Riley's confession brought to light. It's easy to think that the family we see on TV is the same one behind the cameras, but the reality is far from the polished, excellent image. What was being played out on the screen was merely a quarter of what was genuinely happening behind closed doors. Riley's confession that Mama Joyce issued an ultimatum before Kandi and Todd's wedding wasn't just a casual admission. It was a game-changer, one that rocked the basis of the family's beautifully curated image. Riley shared how in a difficult conversation, Mama Joyce had made it perfectly obvious if Kandi married Todd, she would drag her financial support from Kandi's business ventures. This wasn't just a mother's disapproval. It was a power move, a form of control that Riley thought was corrosive. Mama Joyce wasn't merely giving her opinion. She was threatening to take away her financial supports and her impact, which was a significant aspect of Kandi's success. Now, this is where it gets pretty complicated. Riley, who had been a kid of the spotlight for years, finds herself trapped in the center of very severe family dispute. She wasn't just dealing with her mother and grandmother's disapproval of each other. She was trying to navigate the weight of their aspirations and the hardship that put on her. The loyalty to both women was overpowering, and Riley explained that she often felt torn between them. On one side was her mother, who had provided all for her. On the other side was Mama Joyce, who had been a consistent presence in her life, but whose influence over Kandi has always been overpowering. Riley's fears concerning Todd only deepened as she learned more regarding his behavior. There were rumors because Todd seemed more interested in Kandi's fame and wealth than in her as a person. These rumors began to take root in Riley's head, and she couldn't ignore the nagging suspicion that Todd was simply using Kandi to climb the social ladder. It wasn't simply about love. It was about leveraging the platform and the connections Kandi had built for his own gain. Riley's worries weren't unfounded, especially after she realized that Todd had been involved with another woman before Kandi, a relationship he terminated abruptly, when he learned that the woman couldn't improve his financial standing or status. Now here's where it gets much more twisted. Riley wasn't merely glancing at her stepfather through a lens of suspicion. She was trying to protect her mother from what she regarded as a risky situation. Her concerns rose when Kandi, in an effort to show her affection for Riley, purchased her a brand new Porsche Cayenne for her 16th birthday. On the surface, it seemed like a lavish gift from a loving mother, but behind the scenes, it triggered a whole new conflict. Todd wasn't happy with the automobile, arguing that it was too much, that Riley should have received something more practical, like a Honda Civic. This debate wasn't just about the car. It was about control, about the tension between Kandi's achievement and Todd's sentiments of inadequacy. This is where the cracks in Kandi and Todd's marriage started to become undeniable. Riley had never seen her mother and stepfather argue like this previously, and it left her shaken. She had always understood that Kandi was the breadwinner, the star of the show, but seeing way it impacted her family dynamic was eye-opening. Kandi and Todd's marriage, previously supposed to be a power couple's fairy tale, was being revealed for what it genuinely was. Complicated, full of tension, and propelled by the pressures of renown and money. But here's the surprising part. Kandi has always been a force to be reckoned with. She had built her empire by hard work, determination, and sacrifice. But in this moment, as she justified her choice to acquire Riley the Porsche, she divulged something that was hard to ignore. She was exploiting her wealth like a cover, a technique to hush her relatives when they challenged her. Kandi told Todd to stop insulting her for pampering Riley, saying that she was utilizing her own money to do it. It was a statement that not only highlighted the discrepancy between Kandi and Todd, although also emphasized the widening rift in their relationship. This was the moment when it became obvious Kandi's wealth wasn't merely a symbol of success. It was a weapon, one that she wielded to govern her relationships, to maintain her status, and to silence anyone who dared challenge her. Riley's fear regarding Todd's intentions had been validated. But it was more than just that. It was about how the family's fortune and prominence had become a currency for power, a coin that Riley didn't feel comfortable with. Now, this is where the tale takes a darker turn. The strain between Kandi and Todd wasn't simply about material stuff or career issues. It was about their ability to communicate and bond emotionally. As the couple trying to move past the tension, they sought therapy to address their difficulties. During a particularly emotional session, Todd admitted that their work commitments had drawn them apart, providing little room for intimacy or connection. Kandi agreed, acknowledging because she had been so focused on her business and acting career that she had neglected her family. This moment of honesty between Kandi and Todd shone the fissures in their connection that had been expanding for years. The love they once shared had been eclipsed under the burden of their different careers. Kandi's commitment to her business had come at a cost, and Todd's sacrifice of his own career had left him feeling underappreciated and resentful. Their partnership has become a business partnership rather than a marriage, and the emotional separation has formed a rift that neither of them could easily repair. This is where it gets even more interesting. Kandi and Todd were faced a crossroads. They both admitted that they had allowed their careers to take precedence over their marriage, but neither know how to fix it. The therapy session revealed that their marriage was built on success and business transactions, not love and emotional connection. It was a wake-up call for both of them, forcing people to confront the realities of their relationship. And now Riley's information about her familial problems has offered the world a glimpse into the difficult lives of Kandi, Mama Joyce, and Todd. The truth about their family dynamics was out in the open, and it wasn't pretty. The glitz, the glamour, and the riches that once made them look like the dream family had all been exposed as just facades, obscuring the actual issues that lurked behind the surface. Destiny took an unexpected turn, and the reality of Kandi's family was now out in the open. What was originally perceived as a perfect, glamorous life was now revealed for what it truly was, a realm of difficult relationships, hidden tensions, and emotional struggles. But despite all of this, the family was forced to tackle their challenges head-on, and that's where the actual narrative resides. The drama wasn't ended yet, though. Despite all the tension and unsolved difficulties, Kandi and Todd had to face the irrefutable truth. They needed each other to survive. Their personal and professional lives were so intertwined that it was practically impossible to divide the two. Kandi had worked feverishly to develop her kingdom, but it had come at the cost of her marriage. Todd, on the other hand, had sacrificed his own career to assist Kandi thrive, but he began to feel like his contributions were going ignored. This imbalance in their relationship had left them both frustrated. And despite all their achievements, they were unable to find common ground. The craziest part was that amid all the drama, Kandi and Todd were still trying to make it work. Their therapy sessions were a major element of their journey toward health. It wasn't just about repairing their marriage. It was about understanding each other's demands, emotional triggers, and finding a way to reconcile their hectic occupations with their personal life. And yet, despite the enormous emotional separation, there was a gleam of optimism. They both learned that their affection for each other, though tried, was still there. It would take time, effort, and understanding to repair the foundation of their marriage. But it wasn't impossible. But here's where it gets truly intriguing. Riley's reservations regarding Todd weren't only based on petty jealousy or misunderstandings. She was trying to protect her mother from what she regarded as a harmful situation. As much as she despised being trapped in the middle, Riley's worries were valid. She had watched her mother and stepfather go through the motions but never truly connect. She saw the fissures in their relationship before anyone else, and it saddened her to witness her mother's pain. Now this is when it all comes together. Despite the tumult, Riley made it obvious that she wasn't attempting to tear her family separate. She wanted to safeguard her mother from the emotional burden that had been weighing on her for years. As much as she had been vocal about Todd's intents, Riley wasn't blind to the fact that her mother and stepfather were doing their best to work through their issues. She had to understand that occasionally love isn't enough to fix everything. Sometimes it needs sacrifice, compromise, and a willingness to face the hard truths. What makes this story different is the complexity of family dynamics, especially when fame and fortune come into play. Kandi Burruss and her family aren't just characters on a reality TV show. They're actual folks striving to navigate their own relationships, problems, and accomplishments. What the world doesn't see behind the cameras is the emotional toll that stardom may have on a family. The constant pressure, the balancing act between personal lives and public identities. It's a lot to handle. And for Kandi, it had started to take a toll on her family. Riley's revelations were a wake-up call for all of them. They could no longer hide behind their fame or put up a facade for the cameras. The real work began after Riley's disclosure, and it was evident that no one was immune to the consequences of their deeds. Kandi, Mama Joyce, Todd, and Riley had to come to terms with their involvement in the family's continuing drama and find a way to move onward. The healing process was far from simple, but it was required. If they wanted to have a family that was whole again, they would need to make tough judgments and address the issues things had been building for so long. And as for the future, well, it's still up in the air. The Burruss family has a long way to go before they may find peace. But one thing's for sure. They're not going to let the cameras decide their reality anymore. The truth is out, and the world is watching as they strive to repair what was once broken. The story may have started with fame and fortune, but now it's about something considerably deeper. Family, love, and the complexity of navigating it all in the spotlight. As this story unfolds, it raises issues about loyalty, sacrifice, and the price of success. How far are you willing to go for your family? And how do you keep it all together when everything you've worked for threatens to break you apart? Only time will tell if Kandi, Todd, and Riley can find their way back to each other. But one thing's for sure, this family drama is far from over. Thank you for following this journey with us. Let us know your thoughts in the comments.